Hello, hello, hello. This is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. Welcome. All right, so we are wrapping up CDFM Module 2, and we are on competency number 3 today, which is strategic planning and organizational performance management. So this is a small section, but let's see. The strategic planning and organization management accounts for 17.1% of the questions on the exam. So it's about equal to cost and economic analysis. So you have fiscal law has most of the questions, then defense budget process, then you have today's strategic planning and organizational performance management lesson, and then cost and economic analysis is the fourth one. So the percentages are important because it allows you to delegate the appropriate time to study because you don't know where the questions are coming from. If you focus on the percentages, you know, okay, most of my attention needs to go to fiscal law and the defense budget process. So that's the purpose of those. All right, so let me spotlight. That's the purpose of knowing the percentages on the exam. All right, so let us begin on page 235. So the key with this, again, as I tell people, is once you pass module 1 and 3 and you get to 2, you cannot discard everything that you have learned in 1 and 3, because all of that information, all 3 of those modules, that information works together. They overlap and they relate to what you're studying in module 2. And so if you keep that in mind, it won't seem like, oh, I'm learning a new concept. Well, no, you're not. You already learned it earlier. But because you dump it, because I hear people say, yeah, once they finish an exam, they dump it. But then when they got to the other one, they realize, oh my goodness, there's questions from the other module. And so strategic planning is after you now have the National Defense Strategy, National Security Strategy from the NSC, then the Deep Defense comes up with a National Defense Strategy. By law, every organization, every agency, Ms. Rumble Adams, please go ahead and mute because I don't want you to say anything. It's being recorded. So every agency has to have a strategic plan every 4 years. And so the Department of Defense kind of have a workaround. So that's what we're going to look at and how they do their plan. So on page 235, you'll see they talk about from FY 2018 to 22, the National Defense Business Operations Plan. And if you read that paragraph, you see that plan was a part of the NDS for that year, the National Defense Strategy. The primary focus you need to know of why do we have a business operations plan is the roadmap. It helps us to put our strategic goals on a table. Then we have a plan in how we are going to accomplish those goals. That's basically what the Defense Business Operations Plan is. So it says the roadmap to reform and improvement. But as we're spending money, we want to make sure we're getting the best for our dollar. So there are 3 strategic goals that are supported by this National Business Operations Plan. To rebuild, to build or rebuild, to have a more lethal force, that's the military force, to strengthen our alliances with our partners and to get new partners. And then the third one is to improve our business performance and affordability. How we're spending money, we want to make sure that we're spending it, we're getting the most affordable, but we're also achieving our objective. So those are the 3 primary goals that are achieved by this roadmap detailed in the National Defense Business Operations Plan. The key thing on this business operations plan at the very bottom of page 235, it tells you what the plan does. That plan establishes the business goals. We got a strategy in the National Defense Strategy. And let us not forget there's 3 DoD support systems that all 3 work together to meet the National Defense Strategy. JSIDS that identifies capability gaps in the .MLPF. If it's anything other than material, it triggers the PPBE process or the second system. And then if it's a material solution, it triggers the acquisition system. So in all of that, now you need to make it all work. And so the business operations plan is how you put it into work. So on the bottom of page 235, what it's saying is this plan established the business goals, the things that you need to do to link the DoD strategy in those 3 systems so that you can also meet the national security strategy. So any question on that? Page 235 says a lot there, but I want you to remember what you studied thus far in module 2, and then now we're putting it into plan. You got to have a plan to meet that strategy. All right, so let's move on to page 236. Business process reengineering. The definition is given to you in that paragraph. It says that it's also called business process innovation. So whenever you see that, that means they can use either word. So you need to make sure you associate the BPR and the BPI together. What is it? It is a radical change, a radical improvement of our business process to do what? To improve what we're spending, how long we're spending, how fast can we, when we talk about acquisition last week, we talk about cost, schedule, and performance. We want to get the best product, affordable product with the best quality for the cheapest price, basically is what all of it boils down to. A key word in the second paragraph, process reengineering. It focuses on producing the output, because this comes up again also in module 4 if you choose to go further, is we're not looking specifically on name brand or how we get there, is what is the end result? What can this equipment do? Can it meet that capability gap that we have? Can it do what I needed to do to accomplish my objectives, my goals? So we focus on output rather than the structure of the organization. The steps to reengineering, I'll just name them, but I'm not going to go through each one. On page 237, create your framework. You got to have a guideline whenever you start something. Identify the customers and what they need. Map what you're currently doing, the existing process. Because you got to know what you're doing to figure out, okay, what do I need to change, improve, update, or leave alone? Number 4, measure process performance. Number 5, now I'm changing, I'm redesigning what I was already doing, and now I'm going to put it into play. I'm going to implement the redesign. Whenever you have a list of things like this, steps, make sure you know the order in which they occur. Because if I take the numbers from in front of them and I mix them up, and then I say, okay, put the business process reengineering steps in the correct order. If you think of it in how it happens, it's easier to remember. Create your framework, just like when you're doing an audit. You don't just jump out there and be like, all right, I'm here to audit you. You got to have a plan. What am I going to look at? What are my guidelines? What are my framework? Then I'm going to know, okay, who am I supporting? What's the size of the organization? What do they need? What are they expecting? And so forth. So those are the steps. On page 8, Re-engineering team. I will advise you, anytime you see team composition, anything with a team coming together, I'm going to immediately take you to the last paragraph on page 238. And I say that because I've done multiple cost analysis courses, budget courses, and anytime the word team, group coming together, those particular words always come up. Team composition. And if some people have told me, yep, I seen it again when I sat down to take the exam. Forming. When you first put a team together, an employee first come into the workplace, you're forming a team. You agree on the goals. Then the second step is the storming stage. The group starts to sort itself out. Who can do what? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Can I trust you? Conflict often appears in the storming phase. Then the next phase is norming. Is when disagreements and personality clashes are resolved. Okay, we figure out now, okay, what each individual is required to do. And then the last stage is performing. Make sure you know the definitions. You're not going to see it in that format. However, based on your knowledge of the definitions, then you'll be able to know how to answer the question. Way back when, my scenario using this dealt with, okay, I'm a brand new employee. I think it said, I just got to the organization. My supervisor gave me a list of my duties and responsibilities, and I was introduced to the team. What stage of team development was I in? Or something similar to that. So you're going to have a scenario, and based on the scenario, is going to let you know, is it form, storm, norm, or perform? FSNP. I'll put my acronym, FSNP. Form, storm, norm, perform. Any question on this? And that's all I'm going to say about it. So when we're talking about a re-engineering team on that same page, it talks about having at least 10 members on the team. And then your team should be built of people from different sections, different capabilities, different strengths, different weaknesses. So keep that in mind as we're talking about re-engineering, changing, improving what our processes are currently. All right, no questions. Page 239. I'm sure we've all heard the terms Lean, Six, and Sigma. So let me point out the definitions on page 9, first paragraph. Six Sigma is a quality control method. Basically, it's a management philosophy to do what? To reduce inefficiencies. I want to know if I have issues in my current operation and I want to reduce things that don't make sense. It doesn't contribute anything, while ensuring that we're still meeting the customer's needs. So Six Sigma. So then when you add the Lean Six Sigma, which is the second paragraph, is a combination of two methods. So I'm not only looking for inefficiencies, I want to also look at reducing that fraud, waste, and abuse, defects, regular mistakes that people make. We want to identify that. So when you put all of that together, that's what makes it a Lean Six Sigma. Know the difference, because it's important enough for them to put it there. Then on the bottom of page 9, it talks about the 5 steps of the Six Sigma process. Here's another step again. The DMAIC, define. In every step, you always have to define something first. Identify something, the framework. Define, measure, analyze, improve, control. They go in order. So if I mix them up, you should be able to tell me DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Those are the steps, the 5 steps to the Six Sigma. So again, if you're new to the study group, I do not go through each page. That's not what I'm here for. A study group means I'm pointing out some important things that I think are important enough to understand the concept. All right, page 10, benchmarking. The definition is given. So a lot of this is words and definitions. So that's your focus in this strategic planning. Well, as we're planning and we're measuring how things are performing to make decisions on whether that's the best decision to make. So what is benchmarking? The process of measuring and comparing what you're doing against someone that is considered to be best in class. They're the best at what they do. So I look at my operation and benchmark to see how well am I doing. And there's 10 steps to that. Page 11, the Government Performance and Results Act purposes. The GPRA also comes up if you haven't already taken, I want to say module 3. It's in the fiscal law part of it. And don't forget, fiscal law accounts for the majority of the question on this module 2 exam. So these things still come up. As I pause right here, for those who may not have heard me say that, if you find a topic in the module that you're studying, you need to go to the other 2 modules after you go through this. So like we're in module 2, you're going to need, like I said, module 3 has some stuff on GPRA, and I think module 1 has some. Go find the same topic in those areas and read it. Because oftentimes there's more information that you can pull together in those sections. The question asked will not directly just come out of what's on this page. They may be other information that is asked of you. Because if you look, you have laws, the 1993 Government Performance and Results Act, GPRA, they expect you to read the whole thing. And who's got that time? Maybe you do. I don't know. All right, so GPRA says improve the confidence of the American people and that we're being good stewards with the funds, accountable. And I'm not going to read all those. Those are pretty straightforward. So that was 1993. And then in 2010, they modernized. They added some additional technologies, lessons learned. We start paying attention to improving the things that we learned throughout the process. I don't have anything highlighted there. Page 2313, strategic plan. Do not forget, if they ask you what's the DoD strategic plan, it is the National Defense Strategy. That is the strategic plan. Every organization is required to have a strategic plan. So for Department of Defense, it's the NDS. So let's read. 2.3.13, second paragraph. Not later than the first Monday in February in any year, the following year in which the term of the president commences. The agency strategic plan, before I read anything else, what is also required, even if they don't say it in this paragraph, what is also required no later than the first Monday in February? For those of you who've tested already, but I'm not going to call your name out.
The budget.
The budget. The president has to submit the budget to Congress no later than the first Monday in February. So as you see, that's not the only thing that is required. So the agencies must submit a strategic plan in the second term of the president coming on board, which shall cover a period of not less than 4 years. So that means it's a 4-year strategic plan. And although it's not listed on the page, or maybe I missed it, the DoD strategic plan, I repeat again, is the National Defense Strategy. So at the bottom of page 13 is telling you what every strategy must have. Every agency has one. Mission statement, your goals, performance goals, and your federal priority goals. All of those are listed. And when we started off this section, I said in the National Defense Strategy, there's a plan that's also part of the NDS. What is the name of that plan? That's the check on learning, because we just went over it. That is the business operations plan. So you can have a strategy all day, but you need a plan to put it into play. So the business ops plan that we started talking about in the beginning, which was on page 5, is part of the National Defense Strategy. So what you see I'm doing is, if I come to an area of a topic that I know I already discussed or studied, I'm going to recall similar information that goes with that topic. What that does, it helps me to remember when I see the information again without the book, then I know, okay, the National Defense Strategy has got that Homeland Security part of it. It's got, from Module 1, the National Military Strategy is part of it, and all those things, business operations plan, and so forth. Do not tunnel vision when you're studying for the CDFM. Annual performance plan versus annual performance report on page 14. Under the GPRA Modernization Act, the Modernization Act was in 2010. The other one was 93, if I'm recalling that correctly. I always like to check. 93 in 2010. So it says annual performance plan defines the level of performance to be achieved. So they have guidelines on the performance level that must be achieved. It says the APP may be used to structure the budget submission, when they're going to submit, because based on your plan will determine when do we submit our request to Congress for funding or in the president's budget. Some requirements for reports on page 15. You have an annual performance report, and that is the agency's progress achieving their goals and objectives. Let's see, how often? The term annual performance report means the same thing. So I'm on the third line of page 15. So the APR means the same thing as the performance section of the performance and accountability report published in November, or the annual performance report that is published in February. So they have an annual in February, and both of those report, even though they have different names, they both represent the annual performance report. All right, so I just wanted to point that one out. The second paragraph, the GPRA Modernization Act of 2010 also requires the agency head not less than 150 days after the end of the fiscal year to make available their annual performance update that compares actual performance to plans, is basically what it's saying, to what you plan, actual performance achieved. So 150 days after the end of the fiscal year, within that timeline. Everything else is straightforward. The bottom of page 16, the DoD's alternative. So as I mentioned, although there's a requirement to submit certain reports at a certain time, the Department of Defense have some exception to policy. Let's put it that way. So alternative, the DoD agency's financial report, the AFR, which includes the annual statement of assurance, and I think you covered that again in auditing, and financial statements, is submitted to OMB and Congress, Office of Management and Budget, by 15 November. The annual performance report is submitted to OMB by 15 February. So if that goes back again to page 15, that first paragraph, when we talked about November and February. So now they're giving you more details. which ones are submitted in November versus which ones are submitted in February. So I wrote it at the bottom of my book to keep them separate. And the best way to think of it, the AFR versus the APR. The letter F comes before P. So November, the AFR is submitted, which is your statement of assurance, financial statements, and it goes to OMB and Congress. The APR, performance report, is submitted 15 February, goes to OMB and Congress, and it gives us our justification materials for when we submit our budget request. It goes along with that same material. Page 17, establish data standards for enterprise system. So we want to make sure that we have connectivity between the system, common language. Again, we don't want to build something that only certain criteria can work with that equipment. We're trying to make it adaptable, flexible, common languages. So that's all they're saying here is we try to use similar finance, budget related accounting information in all of it. Let me see. The terms on the bottom of page 17. People often get confused with the outcome measure versus output. So if the seed outcome is a qualitative result. So that means depending on how you qualify things, your opinion might be different versus output is a quantitative, and it can be qualitative, but is often recorded by some type of a specific result that you're looking for. So make sure you know those differences. Those are the only two I had pointed out. All right. So most of what we talked about so far in the CDFM is dealing with appropriated funds. We've also touched on NAF funds, non-appropriated funds, and so forth. So we're going to look at page 18, 19 are some alternate funds, which are called miscellaneous sources of funds. The idea behind these particular funding is that you have to have some type of statutory authority to keep these funds. For instance, recycle at the top of 19. When you recycle on an installation and they get money, you can't necessarily not keep all of it. You have to have a certain limit. But before we go to 19, let's go to 18. Under that first paragraph, miscellaneous sources of fund. The last sentence says, unless there is legal authority to keep these funds, you must send it to the U.S. Treasury as a miscellaneous receipt. For any answer in the CDFM, if it's a funding that the organization cannot keep based on their statutory authority, those funds are returned to the miscellaneous receipts account in the Treasury. So you're going to see that multiple times. Agriculture and grazing leasing, that means you lease land, you lease something on an installation, you give them money. Can they keep it? Examples of appropriate use of proceeds to cover their administrative. So there's a certain amount that they can keep to continue their operation. Recycle on page 19, under Title 10, U.S. Code 52577, and covered in DFAS 37-1, it says towards the end of that paragraph, the organization can keep the funding for recycle program if the balance available to the military installation under this section is not in excess. So is in excess of 10 million, the amount of the excess will be covered and deposited again into the miscellaneous receipts account. So on recycling, the limit is 10 million. That's a lot. That must be some good recycling. So associate that 10 million. I'm writing in my book. Sale and out lease, I don't think I saw any dollar amounts on that one. Let me see. On the top of page 20, it says at least 50% of the proceeds deposited in the special account shall be available for these activities only at the military installation where the proceeds were derived. But I don't really see a dollar amount of how much you can keep. So that sounds, this one looks like you get to keep all the money that comes through for that particular purpose. Fishing on page 20. Let's say you want to go fishing on an installation and you got to pay a fee, right? Because you got to get a license or whatever it is to do it. Let's see, Fish and Wildlife. So the money that they collect is used again for the upkeep, to get more fishes in if they need those, to do the making sure that the grass is cut. These fees are used on the installations and are collected for management of the fish and wildlife habitat improvement. So they get to keep their money. Fees collected at installation. I'm reading the second paragraph, last line on the fish and wildlife. So let's say you have an installation that's closed by BRAC. The fees that were collected may be transferred back to any other installation and used for the same purpose of which it was collected. Energy savings at military installation. So that says that they have the statutory authority to repair by replacement. You're fixing the equipment to be more energy efficient. There's no money associated with that one. All right, so the key here with this section is know the different types of miscellaneous sources of funds. That's one. Agriculture and grazing, recycling, sale and out lease, fish and wildlife, energy savings. That's just a topic, but different ways in which you can collect money because they have the statutory authority. Page 21, changing defense business processes. So again, all of this, as you talk about strategic planning and organizational performance management, when you're managing performance, is you're consistently evolving your processes. So that's one. The department has established several funds that provide flexibility during the year of execution, such as the Counterterrorism Partnership Transfer Fund, the Counter ISIS Train and Equip Fund. So they have certain specific funds. The PPBE process provides the flexibility to establish high priority funds or new programs during the fall review, OMB and OSD, for negotiations. And so based on processes that we have already in place, we can evolve, we can change. If we have terrorist activities, we know we don't have enough funding, we need to go back to the table during a fall review and request those if it's not covered under counterterrorism and counter ISIS funding. The DoD Financial Management Certification Program supports development of the workforce, which is us, to bring increased analytical capabilities. So when people say, okay, why do you need the CDFM if you have to be DoD certified anyway? Well, that gives you that additional certification because again, we are to be improving, to be more efficient, more effective in the investments of taxpayers' dollars. And so critically important, the training and financial system together support that audit progress of the Department of Defense that we talked about earlier. And then for, which comes out of nowhere, page 22 throws in, and this deals with whether the government continues a job or you outsource this to someone else. What you're going to need to know here is the differences of who maintains accountability. Let's see, outsourcing. Under outsourcing, the government entity remains fully responsible. So who is responsible? In outsourcing, the government is fully responsible for the actions. Privatization, like your housing, since the housing areas on an installation used to be all government. That means the government maintained responsibility. Now the housing areas on all installations are privatized. That private company is the one that bears the responsibility for operation and improving and all of that. So as part of the PARM, military departments consider any opportunity to pursue outsourcing, insourcing. Again, it all depends on making sure that we have the best resources, the best equipment that we need at a particular time at the best cost. So readiness or investment needs for the warfighter. Everything falls back to what the warfighter needs. Operational chain of command runs from the president to the SecDef to the combatant commanders who are responsible in all these areas. So the chart on page 22 is very helpful. Outsourcing versus privatization. Responsibility remains with the government. So you have contracts, franchise, volunteers versus privatization. Responsibility shifts from the government to the contractor. Family housing, utilities is another example that's given. All right. What are your questions as it pertains to CDFM Module 2, Competency 3, Strategic Planning and Organizational Performance Management? So a lot of this is just information and making sure you know the dollar thresholds, if it's a miscellaneous fund, where you can get those, and you can't just keep the money. You have to have statutory authority to do so. Anybody have any questions? I can't see the hand.
I have a question.
Yes,
For
miss.
page 2.3.5, where it discusses the DoD's strategic plan, I have an older book, and it's the 2018 book, I believe. So when you were going through it, it didn't line up with what you were stating. So is there a place I can get that current information that's from the book you're stating?
So what is the first, because mine is right after the knowledge check. So is it the topic doesn't line up, or, because like I said,
The top, it says the 3 top strategic priorities and then the 5 strategic goals. That's what it speaks of, and it has those, flashcards at the top, but it just didn't line up unless I missed it.
So they may have changed it because, yeah, this is the 2020 book, the most recent book that they have.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they may have changed that piece, but yeah, you normally when they send a new book, they'll send you the updates to it. But yeah, because I can't send you the book.
Correct, I know.
Yeah, because they watch me real close.
Yeah. So is there like I can Google the website to get that
Yeah, if you want
current?
to put in 2018, FY 2018 to 2022 National Defense Business Operations Plan. Because it's not anything secret, so it should be able to Google it.
Okay. Thank you.
But all it is part of the National Defense Strategy.
Okay.
Was there any other differences?
That's the only one I could, that stuck out to me.
Okay, that's important enough. I know, because we try to hold on to the older book, but sometimes they switch things here or there. All right, well, that's all I have. So next week, we're going to go over fiscal law, because again, it accounts for the majority of the questions on the exam. So I'm going to do module 3.1, because that's fiscal law focused, although you have covered some fiscal law already in the module 2. Module 2 is the most difficult. because as you can see, we shift topics, like we're here and then we over here and then we talking about something else. So you got to be able to, the best thing is apply the information to something that's realistic to you, that it'll make it easier for you to remember the processes. So it doesn't matter where you shift, where they navigate, since you don't know what you're going to have on the exams, that you're able to pivot wherever it is that they, just like you see with these topics where they flip back and forth to different stuff, is you're going to have to be able to do that on the exam. Any particular question, maybe not on this part, but on the other module 2.1, 2.2, I can address that now since we got some time. Okay, I don't hear anything, so we're gonna wrap up with fiscal law next week as we move on to the review process to get you ready. Do not just attend these sessions and then do nothing, because the information is not going to stay up here if it's not something you deal with on a regular basis. Plan to take the exam, put it on the calendar, go ahead and schedule it, and then your brain is going to be like, okay, it's real now. If you consistently just say it and like, yeah, I'm going to take it in June, and you never schedule it, June will be come and gone and before you realize it. So take a leap and get on out there and get it done. All right, thank you all. This is Helen Thomas. If you have not already subscribed to our YouTube page, please go ahead and do so. What it does, it allows the YouTube platform to be more advertised as people start Googling CDFM, mod study help or something like that. It allows them to find the videos quicker because people are leaving comments, clicking, sharing those particular videos. All right, this is Helen Thomas on the CDFM study group. Thank you again for stopping by today. I'll see y'all next session. And this is all for today. You all have a great day. Thank you for stopping by. Goodbye.